In this video, I will be making Schinkenpudding mit Nudeln from the German Cookbook by Mimi Sheraton, published in 1965. As I first started looking into cooking German food, I quickly realized, much like other large countries, there's no single set of dishes that are, quote, German. Rather, there are many regional types of cuisine, such as Bavarian, Swabian, Franconian, etc. And so finding a German cookbook that actually hits on all of these varieties to get started was my goal, and this book does that. It's one of those old school books with no pictures, but it has many recipes that serve as a sort of introductory textbook. I personally love these kinds of books. I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, so I just want to get that out of the way. If you have to have a cookbook that has pictures, then this one's probably not for you. If you like to dig into obscure old school recipes like I do, then it is the book for you. So today's dish actually reminds me a lot of the rich, buttery, and creamy flavors I had when I was traveling around South Germany, in Central Germany, Nuremberg to Munich, that area. And it works great as a nice way to feed your family something that tastes great and pleases most palates. So I fed it to my sister's family. We have 3 teenage boys who all have very simple palates, and they gobbled it all up. They loved it. So in any event, that's my review of this book. Pick it up if you want to get into German cooking, and let's hop into the kitchen. We have a nice and easy setup for our Schinkenpudding that we're making today. About 2 cups of diced ham, a couple of eggs. This is egg noodles. You can use medium, wide, whatever you'd like. It doesn't really matter. These are medium egg noodles. We're going to need butter, we're going to need grated Parmesan cheese, and we're going to need sour cream. This is for the recipe that's in the book. One thing I also like to add to this recipe, because I think it makes it slightly better, and I've read some variations that also include this elsewhere, is a little bit of breadcrumbs to go across the top, just to make the top nice and crumbly and toasty. So you can leave them, you can add them, I'll leave that up to you. For now, we're going to go ahead and hop over to the stove. First things first, we've got our pot of water boiling, and we're going to go ahead and just boil our noodles. We don't need to cook these all the way. These are going to be cooked to just before being done because they're going to cook some more in the oven afterwards. So just go ahead and get these boiling and then drain them in the stove, and then I'll show you what to do next. While our noodles are doing their thing, we're going to go ahead and make actually this cream sauce that is going to go into this baking dish that we're going to ultimately put the noodles and the ham and everything into. So let's see, we want about half. You don't have to be super exact with this one, but you want about half of this. This is a 16 ounce, so you want about 8 ounces of sour cream from this. And break our eggs and put those in as well. Let's get all that in there. And then always start off on the lowest setting. I know it's kind of tempting. I know it's kind of tempting to go after the high settings first. I know it was for me when I first started getting into cooking, but you're better off starting slow and speeding up almost always. So now we're going to make sure we get a generous amount of salt in here because the butter we use is unsalted, so you always have to add your own salt in those cases, as well as a little bit of pepper. And actually, just a little bit more salt, just because this is kind of a big casserole that we're making. And we're going to give it one more swirl just to swirl the spices in, or the seasoning in. All right, and that's the sauce we're going to use when we bring everything together. All right, we've got our cooked drained noodles here. This dish actually comes together pretty easy from this point forward, so we're just going to go ahead and put our ham in with our noodles. In there. And we're just going to toss that a little bit to get it all mixed up together. And if you get a clump of pasta that's kind of stuck together, having a pair of tongs to sort of break that up also really helps. So let's just continue getting this all mixed together. And that's just so we have an even distribution, or as much as we can, of noodles and ham throughout our bake here. Okay. So I've got a baking dish here that I've already pre-buttered. So let's just go ahead and get this in there. And now that we've got it in there, we will go ahead and just sort of move it around a little bit to get it evenly distributed throughout our baking dish. Very good. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is pour our sauce mixture all into this. And again, we want to try to sort of get it a little bit everywhere so that it gets spread throughout the mixture here. To some extent, it'll all even out on its own as part of the baking process, but as much as you can help it along to evenly distribute the salt and pepper especially, but everything else as well. Because at the temperature this is going to bake at, it's going to boil the liquid, and so the boiling action there will kind of spread the liquid around a lot. I rearranged it a bit so you can see a little bit better, but now we're going to use some more of that butter, and we're just going to dot the top with some butter kind of all over the place. Just doesn't have to be firm cubes or anything. You just want a little bit of butter sort of all over the, spread around the whole top of the bake. This is a very, which is, I actually say this is, that's kind of why I chose it. I actually think this is quite a typical German dish from the time I've spent over there and the friends from Germany that I have. It's very rich. Germany is kind of a cold country a lot of the year compared to, I live in Florida. And so these types of rich, creamy dishes like this end up serving you well in the type of environment that Germany is. All right. Now, next thing we're going to do is get our Parmesan cheese. I always make sure I buy the Parmigiano Reggiano, which I believe means that it's specifically the cheese from Italy. We have all sorts of knockoffs here in the U.S. Our standards are definitely not as strict on what you can call certain things here in the U.S. as the EU is. I like a lot of cheese. I like mine to be quite cheesy, so I'm going to use most of this. One of these days I'll make you guys Käsespätzle, which is German mac and cheese, and that is also one of my favorite dishes. that I had when I was over there. And the last thing now is the breadcrumbs. Just want to sprinkle these across the top as well. And this you don't have to go nuts with, a little bit. As I say that as I spread a little too much probably. So, okay. And that's it. Now we're going to put this in the oven for 30 to 40 minutes. Because the oven is baking at 400 Fahrenheit, which is quite hot, I like to cover the top in foil for the first 20 minutes or so. And the point of doing that is to stop the cheese and the breadcrumbs from browning too much, because at those temperatures they will over brown quite quickly, even though you need it to cook to get the liquid in the bottom. So I'm going to pop this in the oven and then I'll show you guys what it looks like when it comes out. All right, and here is our Schinkenpudding with Nudeln. And I cut out a square already. You can see it stays together. And I garnished it with some fresh chives from my garden, just because that's sort of a classic combo. So this is a nice, this will be my family's Sunday dinner tonight. It's a nice meal you can make pretty quickly and with readily available ingredients that taste delicious. You can give it to your whole family for not a lot of money as well. So that's it. I'm sure I'll be making many more German recipes, as it's a very rich cuisine with a lot of good stuff. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you at the next video.